Hello and welcome to today's episode number 17 of the Human Condition Podcast. I'm your host, American Council on Exercise Certified Personal Trainer, Gary Jones. I know that it's been a while. The last episode that I recorded was the one with my mom, and it happened to be the most popular episode so far. And if you missed it, in that episode, we talked about all sorts of things, including her decades-long struggle with chronic illness. But then life happened. It's summertime. We had summer things planned, and it's just difficult to try to find the time to sit down and plan and record and edit podcasts. And I'm not trying to sell myself short. I do feel like what I have to say is valuable, but I also understand that there's I got to keep some toes into reality in terms of how much time I spend, how much sweat equity I'm going to put into everything, because right now it's not profitable. I have my socials, I have my website, I write my blogs, but it's not earning any money, and so I'm trying to stay present in my life and be very realistic. And so I think what I'm going to try to do from this point forward is just record maybe one podcast episode a month, just until I get some traction, because if there was a lot of people that were looking forward to the episodes, if there was a lot of people listening to it, then of course I would want to deliver on something that they would find beneficial and that they would actually want to listen to. And that's not to knock the people that do listen to my podcast. It's just, I'm sure that they would understand, mainly being because it's mostly my family. But yeah, so what I've been doing lately is a lot of yard work, tending to the homestead. I picked up a little side gig. I have a handful of side gigs, mostly micro gigs, like online, like data annotation and stuff. And that's just, in order to keep my schedule super flexible. It helps me be able to stay home with my daughter when she's not at daycare, because she goes to daycare for socialization. But it helps me stay home, stay flexible. And then my other side gig, and I don't want to talk too much about it because it is a side gig. Basically, it's a paid workout, and it's a lot of manual labor. And you know what's funny is I actually thoroughly enjoy manual labor, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's just because it's the workout or it's the grit you got to put into it. I don't know what it is, but I enjoy it thoroughly. So I have a handful of things going, and those are starting to take up a little bit more time than the time I have available to spend on my business. And that's not because I don't care about my business. That's not because I don't want to see my business become profitable. And like I said, I'm not selling myself short. It's just I'm trying to find balance still. And ever since I started this business, it's been a constant shift. It's, I started because I had a personal trainer certification, and then I realized that I didn't want to do personal training, strictly personal training in the sense of writing exercise programming and stuff like that, because what people need more is education on their own health and wellness, and how to be able to translate certain things to their own life, their own body. And so I wanted to shift my focus more towards health coaching. And it wouldn't be fair for me to start doing a ton of health coaching without the certification. I'm not one of those people that will say that I am a thing that I'm not. And so starting in February, I'm going to be taking the American Council on Exercise certification course for health coach. And then as I started even going down this path to rebrand and to gear myself more towards health coaching, I started to think about all of the ways in which there's not a lot of equity equity and equality when it comes to access to health coaching or even personal training services. And so, where I think I want to shift my focus now is to start networking with local healthcare providers and even our county health department in order to create community based programming um, for education for everybody. Because you got to think like there are some people that need it real bad, and those people that need it, they don't have access to it. And I know we're like in the age of smartphones and everybody has a smartphone, but like when your whole life is about like survival, these aren't the things that you're thinking about. And it really needs to be a point driven home that taking care of your health and wellness it should very well be part of the healthcare continuum. And so I've been looking into figuring out how to make myself accessible, how to, once I get my health coaching certification, I'm going to apply for what's called an NPI number, and what that will hopefully let me do. I don't really know what the laws are in the state of New York. I'm hoping that will allow me to be able to accept insurance so that it's covered by insurance. And the only downside to that is that most insurance companies, unfortunately, still consider services like personal training and health coaching or like weight loss services as a vanity thing and not a health related thing. And so I would have to look into it to see how I would be able to make my services so that they count towards insurance, because I've said this time and time again. I am not in this for the money. I'm not trying to get rich off of health coaching. An income would be nice, a modest income, just something to live off of, something, to help put my kids through college, that type of thing. But like beyond that, I am one of those people that like, if I don't need it, it's not on my radar. I do my very best to have gratitude for what I already have. And I'm a work in progress. Let's be real. Like, I've only just recently learned about how the brain is so terrible at uh, our own happiness. Like, we are just awful at it. And I get it. It's, that's a whole other conversation I would love to get into. And I think I've talked about it before. It's from the Yale course, The Science of Well-Being. And if you're like wondering why or how I'm taking these courses, I just go on Coursera. I don't pay for it. I audit these courses because the information is valuable whether or not I have the certification to say that I took the course or not. And I think the thing with Coursera is once you take the course, even if you just audited it, you can always pay for it later, and it saves your progress through the course. You don't have to restart it. But yeah, I take these courses because I'm a huge fan of knowledge. And I think I made a TikTok about this recently about how in a LinkedIn post. That's another place you can find me. If you want to go the more professional route, you can find me on LinkedIn. But it's I don't have the time or the energy or the capacity to, or even the money. Let's be real, because it's expensive to go and further your education in an official sense, to add letters to the end of your name or to get another degree or official certifications. It's expensive. And on top of that, like I said, the time, the resources, I'm doing my very best in life, but in understanding that even though I don't have these things, I do have an insatiable thirst for knowledge. And there are so many ways that you can research and study and find out information on the topics that you want. My wife had a physiology textbook, and I don't know much about physiology, or at least I didn't beforehand, but while she was in the midst of trying to sell off her textbooks, I asked her if I could keep that one. And of course she said yes, because it's me. But I started reading it. And so I'm starting to learn about physiology through textbooks. I'm not going on to social media and finding like these bro science things and just pulling information from there. I'm literally going to what is used to teach others about these things. And so I think that helps me become very well rounded in terms of preparing to become a health coach. And it helps, I think, and I don't know this for sure, but I would assume it would probably help build trust with local healthcare providers, because anybody can say that they're a health coach, anybody can say that they're a personal trainer, and it's unfortunate. And even if you are certified or have gotten a certification, like that doesn't necessarily mean that you research all of the things that need to be researched. There are, of course, very good, very trustworthy personal trainers and health coaches. But unfortunately, there is an even larger number of people who are untrained, uncertified, only care about the money. And it blows my mind. It is a constant thing. I just made another TikTok about this yesterday. I was scrolling through YouTube Shorts. I don't even remember why, but I came across this ad. The whole ad was entirely AI generated, and it just shows, and it's directed towards men in particular, which is a thing that like happens, with targeted marketing and manipulative marketing. They want to find the box that you fit in, and they want to go after it. So like sometimes it's men, sometimes it's women, sometimes it's older populations, whatever the case is. Targeted manipulative marketing. And this ad in particular shows these like super jacked, like steroid level jacked dudes. And they're being interviewed by these like little skinny women. And basically the whole premise of the thing is like, you need to do military workouts. All men should do military workouts. And it's like, the whole ad is just, you're setting unrealistic expectations. You're promising quick fixes. You're showing these extreme versions of body types that have been very well studied to be what some people want. And you're using that to sell your stuff to somebody. And I hate that so much. So these are probably people who decided one day that they were going, and maybe they decided in the beginning that the whole thing was to help people, but then, I don't know. I always want to believe the best. I always want to believe the best in people, and that their intention when starting out was because they genuinely wanted to help people. But when you're putting ads out like that and you're manipulating people that badly just so you can get them to pay for your subscription service, it makes me mad. But again, it happens. Even with actual certified people, it happens. Money makes the world go round, unfortunately. And it has this like death grip on people's brains sometimes. So that was a very long-winded way of me saying that like I'm not in it for the money. I know how much I need to survive. And so I don't intend on charging premium prices for my services. What I would love to do in absolute all honesty is just to help people. I want to be able to have a network of doctors who, excuse me, who they don't have the time to spend with their patients. They don't. And I hate that for them. But then for them to know that like I exist, I'm here for them. I'm here to help their patients. Whatever the case is, your patients can come to me, and then I will educate them as best I can. I will coach them through as best I can, whatever preventative things we can tackle, and then whatever things we can tackle to deal with whatever they currently have. So, the cost of healthcare in this country, the cost of chronic illnesses, the cost of like disorders and things like metabolic disorders from just a lack of knowledge or like the environment that we've created as a society. It's astronomical. You should look it up sometime. Look up the figure of how much we spend as a population on healthcare. And I would be willing to bet a lot of money if I had it. If I was like a billionaire, I would bet a lot of money on this, but I'm not, so I'm not going to. But if I were, I would be willing to bet a ton of money that a network of health coaches that are ingrained in the healthcare system, health coaches and personal trainers. I don't want to knock that I have a personal trainer certification. I don't want to knock other personal trainers. It's very valuable because in one aspect, you have the education portion where you're teaching people about themselves, about physiology, their own biology. And then you have the personal trainer who can then walk them through the types of exercises that would be the most beneficial for them and teach them how to move their body in a way that would not cause further damage or damage, period. It would just, I really need to learn how to complete sentences because when I don't do that, I lose my train of thought so easily. But yes. Oh, we would be able to put a major dent in the cost associated with healthcare. And I think coming at it from a preventative side, you would also be able to like alleviate a ton of the issues with overcrowding in hospitals, understaffing from burnout from healthcare providers. It's just that there's no downside. There's no downside to incorporating health coaches and personal trainers into the healthcare continuum and allowing insurance companies to bill services. There's no downside. And so that's my goal. That's my 5-year plan, is to try to figure out how to put myself in a position where I can help my local community. Because I think maybe my problem was in the beginning was that I was starting too big, or I was thinking too big. And so, yeah, I also have a much bigger dream, much larger dream that I feel like it's fair for me to talk about now. I'm not even to the point where it's like reachable, but in the far, far future, or sooner if I can swing it, I want to open a health and wellness retreat. Somewhere in nature, somewhere like in the woods, along a lake, or whatever the case is, so that people can go and they can get away from their lives. But instead of it being, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for. When most people think retreats, they think of like spas. And the intention for this would not be necessarily for a spa. It would be, it would be like where you would go to like unplug from your life and then learn about yourself, about your body, about physiology, about things that impact you, receiving really personalized information, being able to like stay in a cabin, go do some cold plunges, talk to a health coach, maybe mental health help. It's a big dream. I have this vision in my head of a facility that's surrounded by like little cabins where people just they spend a week or more, however long they want to stay, and they just can go to the main building and they can see a doctor, or they can have their blood work, complete blood panels done and explained to them in a way that makes sense. Get their VO2 max, basically like learn where, like, it's like a point in time in your life and you just learn about yourself. So, I mean, that's a huge, huge dream. It's a huge dream of mine. It is beyond where I am currently at. But if you're listening to this podcast and you want to be a part of it, I am more than willing to create networks of these things. So reach out to me. But all of that started stemming from my research on chronic stress. And this is a perfect segue into one of the recent blog posts. There's been too many posts since the last time I recorded a podcast to cover all of them. And really, this chronic stress one is the one that's been the most popular recently. Chronic stress it can be anything. It's like exposure to stress, internally or externally, mostly externally. And it can be acute exposure to major stress that causes prolonged effects like PTSD. It can be chronic exposure to environmental stress or just any external stress force, like going to work and you don't like your boss, or you have a toxic job, and so but you have to go there every single day, or even like, and I wish that this was more spoken about, your financial situation. Obviously, yes, it's going to cause stress, but like the impact of chronically worrying about your finances has physical ramifications. The impact of chronically worrying about anything has physical ramifications. And then there's also what's called anticipatory stress. So like it's your body's reaction to what you think is going to be stressful. And so there's a difference between chronic stress and just normal amounts of stress. What happens with chronic stress is you end up with what's called allostatic overload. Your body is always trying to find homeostasis. Just the perfect balance of what it is that you need to be perfectly you. And then there's allostasis, which is like, it's kind of like a flexible version of homeostasis. It like reaches up and down or whatever, changes its what it considers perfect based on like the body's needs. An allostatic overload is when your body is constantly fighting this stress, and it's changing and changing and changing and rising, like lifting its stress response, because that's just what your body is trying to become accustomed to, which is not what it's supposed to do. And then at some point, that system becomes overloaded and you can no longer deal with new stresses coming in, or like the new feeling of stress. And so your body then goes into a state of chronic stress. And chronic stress has these like cascading systemic effects across the body. It is amazing. I don't mean like, I mean amazing in terms of like science, like the actual bare facts of it, and not that it happens to so many people in the world. It's a huge epidemic. I wrote in that like the blog is titled that it is a silent epidemic, and it is a silent epidemic. It's unfortunately the way that healthcare works is they treat acute symptoms of things. Chronic stress can be one of those things that causes certain acute symptoms like fatigue or constant headaches or gut health issues. But a lot of people suffer with it. So there are a lot of, I want to say, I don't want to call it misinformation, because it's not intentionally misinformation. It is just a lot of like alternative medicine trying to find the answers to what Western medicine can't tackle right now. And like one of the things is they talk about cortisol. And huge thing, I've been seeing this online, cortisol, like here's a low cortisol diet, cortisol slowly killing you, cortisol this, cortisol that. And I want to clear the air right now. Cortisol is an amazing chemical for the body. It is necessary because what it is it acts as the groundskeeper. And you know how like a groundskeeper has all the keys to all the doors. So when the stimuli of stress comes into the body, your body releases cortisol, the groundskeepers, and they then go across the body and they start unlocking or locking or turning things on or off, whatever the case is. They can interact with almost every bodily system in order to put the body in like fight or flight mode, whatever is decided. And then it basically, you become a transformer. Like you're just suddenly everything that you need to fight or to flee is exactly where it's supposed to be, all because of cortisol. There is a misguided information that this causes what's called adrenal fatigue. And your adrenals don't necessarily fatigue. I don't want to get too far into the weeds and trying to explain like the difference, because I understand where the concept came from. I can draw the conclusion as to why this information was put out, because your adrenal axis is part of your stress response. And I can also understand why people think that cortisol is the enemy, because cortisol turns everything on and off. And so basically what this boils down into is most of the information that gets put out on social media that is not backed by science, or there's no easy way to explain it, or it's alternative medicine, whatever the case is, it's unintentionally misguided. Oversimplified ways of explaining things. Although in my research, there's got to be a better way to explain things. The body is a complex system of feedback loops that all feed into each other, and they either are the cause of or the effect of another. And there's really no way to figure out what that is. But dialing it back to chronic stress, it's a huge problem. And it has health implications. And if you're only dealing with the acute symptoms, if you're only dealing with the gastrointestinal distress, if you're only dealing with the headaches, if you're only dealing with the sleep issue, but you're not dealing with the stress, you're just going to keep having problems. You may be able to solve the problem temporarily, but you have got to put in the work. And two of the most researched and still like the most used in order to deal with chronic stress is making sure that you're getting regular exercise and mindfulness. And mindfulness doesn't necessarily have to be meditation, because that's what a lot of people think. Mindfulness, and they automatically imagine like having to sit and breathe quietly. Mindfulness can be so many things. It's really what it is attempting to do is bring you more present in your life. And that's a thing that's needed too. I really feel like everybody is operating at a certain level of stress just based on the times that we live in now. Like your access to your phones and the internet, there's a net positive there. It's a net positive, but I really feel like it's my personal opinion that it's barely a net positive. There's a lot that needs to be discussed in terms of our access to social media. But yeah, if you're dealing with chronic stress, or you don't realize that you're dealing with chronic stress, like really start to think about what it is that impacts your life on a daily basis. Like, do you have a toxic job? Are you in a terrible relationship? Do you have minor stresses? Like maybe you're in a period of time in your life where like you have kids that throw temper tantrums all the time or like angsty teenagers. Are you stressed about finances? Is there always something seeming to go wrong in your house? Do you have PTSD? Do you have past trauma that comes up often? If you do, like this is having, unfortunately, a major impact on your health. Like down to there's even research that shows that uh, dealing with chronic stress can become a generational issue. In That's not to say that like your parents' stress becomes your stress. It's which is possible. I mean, it's possible. If you grew up in a stressful household, like you would understand that you carry that a little bit with you. But there is research that shows that um, chronic stress causes systemic inflammation, and systemic inflammation over time can damage the protective end caps of your DNA, of your genetic strands, which obviously, of course, would have an impact on future generations if you haven't had kids yet. So it's huge. It's major. Um, I feel like this whole podcast ties very well together in the fact that like understanding that chronic stress leads to so many things, and then having that understanding of physiology and all of these major body feedback loops and how, like, what the implication is in terms of affecting the population's overall health is such a driver in why I want to become part of the healthcare continuum. I'm still working out the logistics of it. It's going to take a lot of um, work on my end. I have to network. I have to build trust in the community. I have to build my knowledge. I have to build my resources. There's a lot of things that have to be done, but I'm willing to do them if it helps my local community. And if I can do something in my local community that is so beneficial that it makes a major impact, I would absolutely love to figure out how to mirror this process and then pass it out throughout my state and then make it, from state to state, start figuring out how to create this positive move, this positive change. And yeah, I don't really know what else I can say about this. That's not going to be me repeating myself. So I'm going to recap this episode because I ramble a lot. So I feel like it's fair to do so. Maybe you zoned out a little bit there. Sometimes I zone out while talking. But in this episode, I talked about why it's been a while since I've recorded a podcast, my future plans to put myself in the path of becoming part of the healthcare continuum. I've talked about chronic stress. And yeah, I am going to try to record one podcast a month. Hopefully it will contain enough information that like that's sufficient. But again, I've said this before. I like to hear from other people. And when I can hear from other people, it gives me more fuel to talk about things, either on my social media and my content or on my podcasts, or even like sometimes it gives me ideas what to write blogs about. So if you're listening to this and like you're nervous about reaching out to me, please don't be. If the case is that like you're one of those people that's like, oh, I'll send an email or I'll write a message or whatever, and they're just not going to get back to me, or like maybe I don't need it that much, or whatever the case is. I know a lot of times people reaching out is driven a little bit by fear or anxiety of the social situation. I'm going to answer. I'm going to answer. I am genuinely excited to hear from other people. So yeah, that's this episode of the podcast. And I've noticed over the course of recording this that for whatever reason my camera will lag behind and then catch up, and I'm sorry about that. Ever since I did my workshop, I haven't been able to figure out how to reset everything up correctly. because I didn't even have it set up correctly for the workshop. Unfortunately, I found out immediately as soon as I hit stream. But we're working on it. I'll have to plan another workshop soon because I like giving out the information when I can. I like providing information to people. I like giving people the information that they can then take home and go, oh, I can fix this part of my life. So, in order to avoid more rambling, I'm just going to hop off. So, until next time.